Hi everyone, you found the JUSTPADRIDE Snowboard channel. I'm Lars Horstman and it is new board day in the house. I will get to test a Salomon board this season. This is one of the Hillside project boards shaped by Wolfgang Neiwelt, HPS Takaharu Nakai EP in a 169. And you see all these gadgets on the table, so it's absolute nerd alert today. I will explain to you how you measure setback and effective edge length and all these kinds of little things that you don't really need to do, but they offer a lot of pre-season fun to spend some time with your new board that you're so stoked on. And also it will eventually lead to a better understanding of snowboard geometry. The first things you would obviously do is everything that meets the eye instantly. You want to check that out, and that is your top sheet. Flawless top sheet, really super nice. This is actually, the way I perceive that here, a bamboo top sheet that is then coated, either with clear coat here in the middle, or actually looks like this is some sort of plastic top sheet on top of it. But I see a big time bamboo stringer through here, and I want to say that goes to the very outside, because the original Hillside project boards were all bamboo top sheet with the wood visible from edge to edge. So I assume that's the same here. Very nice, super pretty, no flaws on the top sheet, cut super nicely right above the sidewall here. There's nothing rough or weird going on. Second thing would be the base and the edges. On the base, I just find it interesting to see different base grinds, right? Like this board has a structure and it's super, super, super mild. If you compare this to K2 and Ride, I always like talking about those two brands. I think they make good stuff. The capita structure is fairly visible too. This is milder. For a power board, that is kind of smart, because the rougher the structure, the better it transports water, and that's obviously a matter of spring conditions and wet, heavy snow. So a board like this, in the very cold powder that you hopefully get to ride on it, benefits from a structure that is really subtle. So here you go. That's your base structure on this thing, super nicely done. The base also, I do this with a straight edge here. I'm going to check for base flatness. This is not unusual that boards, when you go towards the tip, become a little bit spooned almost. And I'm not talking actual spoon technology. I'm talking, I want to say that it is an unwanted thing from the press. So what I see on this board as well is like just about from here onwards, I can start seeing, as I move it to the nose, I see light come in through my little metal ruler here. So yeah, that's not worrisome. I prefer this over the opposite. When your base, looking at it, is actually concave, that creates two edges that basically are like rails. I don't like that. But yeah, like snowboard flatness is a huge thing, and it's very hard to find. In the tail, I don't have this issue on the board. And in the center, I don't have that either. So that's super nice. I wonder, maybe Salomon actually did that on purpose. I recently heard some rumors that Korua are doing this on the new boards without actually communicating it, which is strange to me. But yeah, anyways, so nothing to worry about. But this is something you can check with a board, and sometimes you find somewhat ugly surprises there. In regards to the edge tune, I'm just checking whether the edge is smooth. I don't really care whether the edge is perfectly sharp, because I'm going to change that anyways. But like, is it a good edge tune? Has this been done with care? When I look at a board, in particular a brand that I'm less familiar with, what I'm trying to find out is production quality and also quality control. And these edges are flawless. They're amazing. From the pattern that I see on it, I want to say it is a ceramic finish, ceramic stone in the factory that gives you a super smooth and mostly really sharp finish, obviously depending on the set angles. But yeah, this looks amazing and it feels absolutely awesome. Some factories, from my experience, stop at the belt sander, the board's being run by a belt sander, and then that's their tune. So what you will find is that the edge, when you actually push on it and run your finger over it, feels kind of rough, and I'm talking like pretty rough. To me that's unacceptable, but you know, priorities. Camber profile of this board is super interesting. I find it's cam rock, as in like camber in the center, rocker tip and tail. But what is happening between here and the tips is very interesting and quite unique. The board's camber is very short and abrupt and not super high, but pretty like, it's very pronounced. Like it's almost like a bell curve right here in the middle. And the early rise towards the nose actually starts somewhere here, like right at the end of the inserts. So that's a lot of nose rocker, but it's super subtle. Like it's barely rising, it's barely lifting up. So I love that. I love the very pronounced, the very gentle, not so pronounced rocker in the tip. I love very gentle transitions between camber, early rise and actual nose. It reduces a lot of friction, it creates a lot of uplift, or it reduces drag, if you will. I like that. That's a nice profile here. Same goes for the tail. It's not camber into the tail, it's actually a little bit of early rise. And then here I want to say it's kind of flattish. What's intriguing here is the board's core profile, as in the board's thickness. You will see that this board is minutely thicker right where the camber is highest than it is right here where the camber starts. To be then thicker again right under the feet. And then from here onwards it just tapers off, gets thinner into the tips. So I have two flex points, one here, and then the camber in the center. I can't tell you what that's going to do, but I'm pretty certain that I prefer this over the profiles that are simply thinnest in the middle. Thinnest as in looking at thickness under the feet compared to the center. They get thinner towards the center and they're only thin right in the middle. I find that creates too much torsional flex, torsionally soft boards. And I think keeping the very center pretty solid, but reducing thickness right here maybe leads to a slightly different outcome. So I'm really I'm very intrigued to feel this out, and there will be a review on how this thing rides once the snow flies. Alright, let's look at some numbers here. So why am I even doing this? Because every snowboard has some form of a specs sheet, or the info is to be found on the manufacturer homepage. Let me tell you, I've seen just about everything. I have seen inserts from the factory that were drilled closer to the nose than to the tail. I have seen waist width specs that were off by a full centimeter. I have seen setback specs that were off by inches. And over time, I basically created this habit of checking every new board to my personal reference measurement. And whether this is 100% accurate or not is, after all, it doesn't matter, because if I do that with every board, then that is my reference and I know what I'm riding. I do think I'm on the right track here, but if you know better, please let me know. Obvious thing to do, stance width, that's pretty easy. I'm going to need glasses for this chapter. The stance width at reference stance, that's obviously easy, and reference stance with most companies is the center of the insert packs. So basically this guy and this guy, that's the center. So this would be your reference. Even if it's not marked, that's what you would assume. This is different with companies like Gentem Stick. Their reference marks are all over the place. But luckily those guys give you deep information on that, so you can't mess that up. So Salomon are stating that this is reference stance 58 centimeters, and I'm measuring 58 centimeters. Fantastic. Then we get to waist width. Waist width is also very obvious. It's the point at your board where it's the narrowest, its waist. And that's a bit of a rougher one because it changes in a very subtle manner. You have to basically lock a tape measure in one edge there and then pull it down. Now it's growing again, so you go back and you kind of try to feel out where it's narrowest. So Salomon stating 268 millimeter waist, and it's 268 millimeter waist. So that's pretty obvious. Other thing you want to check, is taper. This is at least what I do. You run the same kind of thing at the nose here. Find the widest spot. That is 307 millimeters. And according to them, this board is 7 millimeter taper. So I would expect 300 in the tail. So overall, this is pretty much to spec in regards to its very obvious things. Next one is effective edge, which will lead us to setback. Your setback is done off of the length of your effective edge, not off of your overall board length, not material length. So in order for you to figure out your effective edge, you want to put the board on an edge. I'm going to mark it on my side here. And you basically look where you see light come through. Obviously it's going to be here and here, and you want to find the most outside contact point. Contact points where the board touches the table here are not always just a tiny point. That can be a little bit of a drawn out line, and effective edge basically ends at the outside end of this contact point. So I'm going to do that right here. And I'm taking a really thin Sharpie and just leaving a little mark here on the base edge. This channel is very much the unsupported labor of love of a single man. I have way more views on my videos than I have subscribers, and if you haven't done this already, please subscribe now, like this video, share it with your friends, get the notifications so you know what's coming up next. And if you want, you can also support me on my little platform, buymeacoffee.com/JUSTARIDE. The people who have done this already through the month of October know who they are. I'm very grateful. Thank you so much. A little bit overwhelming. I don't think I could be doing it without you. Thanks, take care, and let's crack on with this video. So I just did this on all 4 contact points. I'm doing it on 4 contact points because I'm going to draw a line between the 2 on each end. And this will lead me to measuring my setback. If you're just after checking your effective edge, you can basically go from contact point nose to contact point tail. That is about 1 meter, 26.5-ish effective edge. I don't know what Salomon are actually stating. And the other thing that I don't know is whether the actual computer, like the CNC type computer animation thing of a snowboard, will actually tell the manufacturer the effective edge, including its side cut, because obviously this is a longer line than going straight from point to point. For my purpose here, that's kind of irrelevant. And again, if you measure every board you have in this way, that you go from point to point in a straight line, then that is your own reference, right? So you don't really, bottom line, doing this yourself kind of frees you up a little bit. And also if you ever buy a used snowboard and you can't find the spec sheet, then this is some easy stuff you can do to figure out what you actually bought there. Okay, so next thing would be figuring out setback. This is super interesting. What I do is I pop some masking tape pretty much between the 2 points that I just marked, so I don't want to draw on my top sheet. Do the same thing here. And then I do the same thing in the middle. I'm doing that a little bit longer. You want to, it doesn't really matter. Pop it somewhere there. And what you do is you take your your little straight edge, run it across from point to point, draw a line on your masking tape. Here you go, you just line those up. Now that's where your effective edge would end on the top sheet. So now you want to figure out the middle of your effective edge. 126.4. So what's half of that? That's 63.2. So that's right here, and you mark it 63.2. So that is the center of your effective edge transferred to your top sheet. Next thing we need is the center of our inserts. And you can either go from the reference or from the narrowest inserts here. It doesn't matter, it's all the same. Basically just measure the distance with eyes. Gosh, I'm old, aren't I? 46 centimeters is the narrowest inserts, and half of that is 23, and that would be right here. So I'm writing EE for effective edge. On this line I'm writing insert center, IC, whatever. And now when we measure this, we find a setback of roughly 46 millimeters. And this is our very own reference. I hope this makes sense. So this first line here being the center of our effective edge, right there. If my inserts were drilled without any setback, so like on a true twin rider right in the center of the side cut, we'd be going equally outwards from this center of the effective edge, okay? So if you then go equally outwards, but now you're like, nah, it's a power board, we're setting it back, you do this, right? So the center of the rider being here got moved back. So in this case by 46 millimeters. And I'm taking this with a grain of salt because obviously my eyeballing and line drawing is not 1000% accurate. And can be a little different from like a computer CAD drawing. However, the interesting part about this is that over the years, I've done this God knows how many times, and over the years I have found my measurement to match the manufacturer description just as many times as not matching the manufacturer description. So I'm left with this, I think I got it right because at least half of them actually match. And then what about the other half? I don't know. Hence, I don't really care about this too much. This is my personal reference because I am judging my setback on the board by where I am over the effective edge. I believe that is how it should be done. And I wish the snowboarding industry could come up with a standard for this. I can tell you one example. I spoke to the guys at Mervin, Liptech New Roxy Snowboards, sent them an email in great confusion because I looked at one of their boards, a POW shape, I think it was the Mayhem Rocket, and I'm like, this does not make any sense. I looked at the effective edge and at the inserts and I found that what they told me in the spec sheet was off. And then I did this and it was wildly off, and I confronted them with that and said like, hey, how do you measure effective setback? And the reply I got was that on the surf shapes, like that rocket with the big nose, they measure setback off of the material length, as in the whole board. And that is of course something entirely different because there's way less material from contact point tail to the very tail than there is material from contact point nose to the very nose. So since the tips, the bent up tips, do nothing, they don't touch the snow unless you're riding powder, to me measuring from the material length of a board is nonsense. Hence, I think it's a good idea, because you don't know what the manufacturer applied to that specific model, to just do it yourself. Like, do it yourself. If you do that with everything, that is your personal reference, and then you don't really need to care about those board specs. So next thing I'm going to measure is underfoot width, if the manufacturer doesn't state this already. That measurement allows me to draw a conclusion to where I am placed over the side cut of the board. I'll explain this here in a second. So I find under the front foot, I find 279 millimeters. Under the back foot, I find 281 millimeters. So let me grab my little cardboard dummy twin. Here's a nice little twin that is already prepped. Here's my inserts, here's my center of effective edge, and also center of inserts, because I'm not set back on this thing. When I measure this board under each foot, I will have the same width under each foot, because the board from its center, from its waist, grows equally in width towards the outside, because everything here is perfectly symmetrical. As soon as I change this by moving the rider back, I'm creating a board that is instantly going to be wider under the back foot than under the front foot. So I'm no longer placed in the center of the side cut. Now on a twin, that is pretty obvious. But here's the key to understand. If I take this very twin, we're just pretending here, and I'm going, you know what? I'm going to make a power board of it. Here's my contact point. Now I'm shortening this whole thing. I'm shortening it by roughly 2 inches, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to cut this tail off. Here we go. Now I have a tapered board, right? My tail is narrower than the nose. And when you look at the inserts and my effective edge, which ends here, then you would say, well, this guy is clearly set back on the effective edge, and he's really far over the tail. But I'm still in the center of the side cut, because I didn't change my insert position. Does that make sense? This example really explains placement of the rider within the side cut, and also explains setback. This is an interesting one to understand. So as soon as I just shorten effective edge and turn this thing into like a chopped off tapered power board, I am still in the center of the side cut. And the measurement that reveals this is width under foot. So if this board, as directional as it is, was actually the exact same width under each foot, then I would be in the center of the side cut, although I'm actually physically set back on the board. So with this board being a little bit narrower, 2 mil, in the front than under the back foot, that means that I'm a little bit off to the back, like behind the center of the side cut. That is fairly normal on freeride boards. On the older boards that didn't have taper, like for example a Burton supermodel from the late 90s, freeride board, but it wasn't really tapered back then, the first iteration. You were set back on the board, and you were therefore, of course, because there was no taper, set back on the side cut center. And basically it makes for a board, because the front foot is further away from the nose contact point, so therefore that nose contact point is less reactive, and that makes for a board that is a little bit calmer, a little bit less like throwing you into turns, because you just don't bring that much weight right to the front here. And obviously the setback overall means better float and powder, and those boards were camber and non-tapered, so you needed to be back. Anyways, so being back on the center of the side cut, I could, if I wanted to, ride this board a little bit set forward. I could probably move like maybe both bindings, one insert forward, and I would land straight in the center of the side cut. One thing to understand with this is, with non-radial side cuts being what they call progressive side cuts that become tighter towards the tail or vice versa. That changes a little bit, and that is over my head. I have no experience with all these CAD things, those computer programs that actually define the shape of a board. They would tell you that's difficult because you're blending different side cuts. I'm talking radial side cut here, and this board has a radial side cut. There's no blending of various side cuts along this edge. So yeah, basically I could move this forward if I wanted to. Why would I want to? On hard snow, being in the center of the side cut makes a board feel a little bit more twinish. And of course you won't be able to make it feel like a true twin, because there's not enough tail and way too much nose, and you are set back on the material length of the board. But check out Burton Freeride geometry. There's very few people out there that actually understand what Burton did there, and I think they did something really awesome. Because they tried exactly what I just demonstrated on those boards that have it, and that would be Hometown Hero, the Deep Thinker, just to name two of them that I know currently exist. What's the thing? Can't come up with it. Anyways, they've been doing this for a long time on their family tree boards, and basically what that means is that Burton understood what I just said, placed the rider in the center of the side cut, although the boards are tapered, and they even went that far that they tried to match the camber and the running surface, as in the base that actually touches on a table, so that the rider is centered over all of this. So you're centered over the camber, you're centered over what touches the snow, and you're centered in the side cut, yet you're on a board with heaps more nose than tail, and also with a bit of taper. And that makes for boards like the Hometown Hero truly a versatile board. Totally not my flex profile. I literally just don't like that thing whatsoever. But in regards to the shaping of the board, the effort that went into designing this thing, that's bomber. That's really good. And if it works for your weight and your riding habits in regards to its flex, then a board like that can be super versatile. That can be your one board quiver. That's basically that. And on this Salomon hillside project, Takaharu Nakai EP, I am a little bit behind the center of the side cut, and I think I'm going to ride it just like that. One question that always comes up is what to do about setback if the reference marks don't match your stance width. So any smart board designer, and Wally Niveld is 100% one of them, would place the inserts where they think the board should be ridden. And what I mean with that is that likely you do yourself a favor by saying, okay, here's my reference marks, and if I want to ride narrow, I move both feet inwards. If I want to move wider, I move both feet outwards. With bindings where you can run the slot in the disc lengthwise, you can do this very finely and perfectly. If you don't have that option, I don't know, make up your mind. The thing to realize here is if you are moving, so it's 2 centimeter increments between the inserts. So if you are moving from what I said here, 58 centimeters, that's the reference marks. If I move my back foot forward to achieve 56 centimeters, then I've changed my setback by 1 centimeter, right? Like I move 1 foot over by 2 centimeters, that shifts my center by 1 centimeter. That's one thing to understand. Same goes if I move this guy back, I move 1 centimeter that way. Yeah, I am riding 54 cms, sometimes 53 or 55, so really this board is it's perfect. I can go from the 58, move both feet inwards by 1 position and land on 54. And I can ride it the way Wally designed it, and I'm very stoked to try this soon. All right, that was new snowboard day in my house, and the next step will be tuning this thing. That's going to be its own episode. Stay tuned for that. I hope you like what you've seen here today. I hope you could do anything with it. It may be entirely superfluous, or it may change your world. I don't know, you decide. Either way, if you like what you're seeing here, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, please ring the notification bell so you see when the tuning episode of this board will drop. And if you want and you can't help yourself, and I will appreciate it, support my channel on buymeacoffee.com/justaride. Thanks, peace, take care.